Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meditation session from Freer and Sackler, Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. Today's meditation session is going to feature an artwork from the Freer-Sackler collection. Now I would like to welcome our meditation teacher, Aparna Sadananda, to introduce today's session.
Thank you so much, Grace, for kickstarting our meditation practice for today. And namaste to everyone who's here. So please do take the time to settle down as we prepare for our meditation today. So today's meditation is going to be on an artwork, which is called The Four Sounds of Sylvan by Thomas Wilmer Doing. And I would like to start by presenting to you the work first. So we'll start by mindfully gazing at this work of art as mindfully as is possible in this moment as we're still arriving into this meditation. So take your time to slowly move your attention from one side to the other, from top to bottom. Paying attention to the details. And using this process to allow ourselves to begin slowing down. And as we look at this art, this painting and the screens, it is very likely that our mind is flooding us with a lot of questions. There may be thoughts. This vision may inspire some memories. And while all of that is a very, very natural and very valid part of our experience as we look at this work of art, let us remind ourselves that this would all be a way of looking at it very rationally, very analytically, like we're still in the headspace. And the purpose of this meditation that is about to follow is to shift into the space of intuition, a space of being and experiencing, rather than merely thinking about something. So towards that end, let us pause the share. Please find a posture that is comfortable, one where you can relax. If you wish to, you can even lie down. And we'll be in that posture for at least 20 to 25 minutes until we come back and look at the screen again. So now if we've made all the preparation, let's go ahead and relax in any posture of our choice, preferably reclining or lying down. And as always, we'll start by arriving into the body. So let's notice how the body is placed in space. One way is to bring awareness to the points of contact, where the body is touching a support underneath, maybe a cushion, maybe a mattress, maybe a yoga mat, or the floor. Let all these points of contact be a reminder that physically the body is right there where we're meditating. And we'll go on to extend this awareness to the rest of the body, like the body's boundary or the skin. It's making a contact that supports the body and allows it to receive that support from the space and the air surrounding the body. And in this way, we can at least feel the connection of the body to its immediate surroundings and the elements of earth, air, and space or ether. Now, if you'd like to, please take a moment to visualize the body as if you're looking at it from the top of the room. And once we've made a mental note of being here and now, we'll come back to the body to check in what's going on. So we understand what the body is experiencing right now in terms of the sensations, in terms of feelings or thoughts, or noticing the patterns of breathing. So we understand where the baseline of our experience is going to be. And even if we encounter any challenging sensation or emotion, can we take the time and space to say to ourselves that this too belongs? So we're observing the body and all that is manifesting through the body from a place of loving kindness. So in that awareness, we start by noticing all the sensations in the feet, the shins and the calves, the knees, the thighs, the hips and the seat, the lower back, the upper back, the shoulders, the arms, the wrists and the hands, the shoulders, the neck, the face, and the head. And however the body is right now. And we could allow the body to just be. Or if you'd like to imagine or releasing these sensations, let's visualize each sensation as a color that is becoming diluted in our field of awareness and attention and is melting and flowing down into the earth. And once we feel that the entire body is at rest, like we've primed the canvas, so the colors put on top of it will show. And just like that, noticing any new sensations that might be invoked as we listen to some of these sounds. So let us try to listen to this sound and try to be in its experience, noticing how the vibrations may create impressions along the body. So let's practice the art of listening without trying to listen just for the sake of replying or responding or reacting. As you listen to these sounds, notice if you were trying to process or analyze these sounds, like trying to identify the source of these sounds, perhaps the sound leading you to a thought and that thought leading to another thought. And if that happened, let's practice the art of listening just for the sake of listening one more time. You noticed holding the breath as you listened. Let's free the breath, be sighed out. Then can we bring attention to where we feel the vibrations as we listen to those Tibetan bowls? And what does that vibration feel like? If you were told that sound has the potential to align the molecules of our being, what would you wonder that pattern would look like? Let's listen to the same sound this time with a sense of curiosity and wonder. And we've experienced the sound in these different ways. Now we know that we have some practical tools to really listen to any kind of sound. So let us listen to these different tones, noticing what they invoke in our being. We listen to these different tones. That the sensations could feel along our being. And what would it look like if we had to express this in a language of words, a language of colors, a language of forms? When this contemplation on how we can translate the inner experience feels complete, we'll now listen to the same set of tones, but focusing on those points where the sound dissolves into its source in the silence. And this listening to the sound of silence feels complete. Let us listen to the sounds that we may hear in the space that we're meditating from. Noticing the landscape that it is creating in our imagination, different sounds, maybe the drafts of air coming in through the winds, the sounds from outside, maybe the sound of our own breathing. or even unstruck vibrations that may be unique to our own experience right now. Noticing these soundscapes, immerse ourselves into this sonic experience. It's translating into so many different ways inside the body. And now let's listen to these sounds from nature. Pausing and noting the effects of these sounds. The hermit thrush. And when that feels complete, listening to these sounds now. Now visualizing what it would be like to feel all of these sounds at once. Babbling brook, the wind through the trees, the hermit thrush, and the woodpecker. Now, gently come up as we open the eyes, looking at the work of art. We can get a flavor of how the artist has tried to convey these four sounds of the Sylvan, a forest in Cornish in New Hampshire. So this work of art, which is part representational but also very abstract. And when that feels complete, we'll close our eyes. We just wonder if we had to express these sounds through colors, forms, and patterns, what would that painting look like? And when that is complete, when we're ready to satiate our curiosity and all the thoughts about this painting, gently open our eyes, closing the meditation with a namaste with each other. And now passing over the spotlight to Kerry, whom will learn a little more about this painting. In the meantime, I would like to thank you all for joining me in this meditation. And I will put in the details of all the different tunes and tracks that we used. So if you're interested, you can go and reference these sources. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Aparna. That was incredibly lovely and relaxing. So today I'd like to talk a little bit more about the history behind these two works that you see before you, that we got to hear this lovely meditation session with Aparna. These are called the Four Sylvan Sounds, and these are two bifold screens that are collectively known by this title. They were painted after Thomas Wilmer Dewing saw a painted screen in James McNeill Whistler's studio. It was during a 2-year period when Wilmer Dewing's patron, Charles Lang Freer, had purchased about a dozen screens from Japan. And the subject matter was derived from Dewing's experience at his art colony in New Hampshire and is intended to transmute the sounds of nature into a visual medium. For those of you who were present for the meditation session last week, if we could go to the next slide, Kit Brooks spoke convincingly about the sonic quality of O'Hara Kosun's Kingfisher on Lotus print. Our painting this week has similar synesthetic associations as it attempts to conjure auditory sensations through paint. Let's go back. In 1894, corresponding to Freer from his summer studio in Cornish, New Hampshire, Dewing observed, quote, "I wish I could be there, taking in this cool, fresh air, filled with bird notes and scents of flowers." 2 years later, the artist wrote again, describing how he had begun to paint a pair of screens representing the four forest notes: the hermit thrush, the sound of running water, the woodpecker, and the wind through the pine trees. This theme was likely informed by the poem Wood Notes by the transcendentalist poet Ralph Waldo Emerson. He wrote the following stanza describing the sounds of the forest. Quote, "When the pine tosses its cones to the sound of its waterfall tones, he speeds to the woodland walks, to birds and trees he talks." Dewing and his wife, the painter Mariah Oakey, escaped the oppressive summer heat of New York City by spending several months each year in the village of Cornish in western New Hampshire. There they purchased an 18th century farmhouse and indulged in their mutual love of gardening. The sculptor Augustus St. Gaudens was the first to settle there, and he encouraged the Dewings and other artists, writers to build homes in the area. Visitors to this summer art colony included the modern dancer, Isadora Duncan, the artist Sylvan and his son, Maxfield Parrish, and the architect, Charles Adams Platt. Mariah Oakey organized musical performances and costume theatricals for visitors and friends alike, often dressing in Grecian garb, much like the women that you see painted on this screen. It was while living in the countryside of Cornish that Dewing painted large-scale paintings he called decorations. These were large works in verdant, vaporous green, featuring figures in lush summer landscapes. Go and look at a detail here. If we could advance the slide. You can see, if we look very closely at the surface, that it's actually likely that these stylized kind of pattern leaf designs that you see were made through overlays of stencils. It's thought that Mariah Dewing may have contributed some of the background foliage and the Queen's Anne's lace flowers that you see on the screen. She was known for her close-cropped floral compositions, which filled the entire canvas with foreground, bringing the viewer directly in contact with the dense vegetation. And let's advance again. Each classically draped figure seems to hover, as if emerging from the Arcadian backdrop. None make eye contact. Each is a picture of solitary absorption. Each represents a different Sylvan sound. Moving from left to right, as a Japanese screen would be read, the woman holding the flute signifies the hermit thrush. The xylophone, symbolizing the falling water, the drum notes the staccato rhythms of the woodpecker, and the lyre recalling the wind through the pine. The screens are nearly 6 feet tall and together nearly 10 feet wide, which adds to their immersive effect. The hermit thrush was known for having an especially lovely, albeit melancholy sound. Poets such as Walt Whitman commented on the beauty of its song, which would be heard at dusk, marking the time of day for the Cornish colony residents, lost in that liminal time and space of long summer days. In a way, the screen asks us to open our minds, to open our senses, to the beauty and the innate rhythms of nature. Thank you. And I'm just looking through the comments to see if there are any questions that I can answer.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Thank you for that talk and for joining us today. I wanted to remind everyone that we will have 3 more art-focused meditations coming up in the next 3 Fridays through August 14th. So please do come back and join us. And Kerry, I was just wondering if you might want to say anything about why we have American art in the collection of the Freer and Sackler, since we are an Asian art museum.
Sure, that's a terrific question. And many visitors to our museum have that same question, I know. Well, it all sort of begins with the story of Charles Lang Freer, whose collection is foundational to our museum. When he began his journey into collecting art, he collected what was for him contemporary American artists, and that would have been people like James McNeill Whistler. And it was through his friendships that he developed with other American artists that he learned more about the art of Asia, the art of Japan, of China, and of India. And it was through these relationships that he realized that his passion really led him to collecting these works of Asian art. And so eventually he would, while artists like Whistler introduced him to collecting Asian art, he would eventually surpass Whistler in terms of the depth and breadth of his knowledge of the art of China, Japan, and he traveled extensively in those regions. And eventually, when he decided to give his collection to the Smithsonian, he wrote into his will, he established that he did want to preserve this collection of American art but he did not want it to expand in any way. He wanted to kind of preserve it as a historic collection. But he did wish for his collections in terms of Asian art to expand and grow, and which is where brings us to the present day, where we're still growing as an institution in terms of collecting.
Thank you. We did.
And I do want to make one note, because I just saw this very quickly in the chat. William Coburn, who is the director of the Freer House in Detroit, mentioned that these would have been decorating Freer's home. So before the collection was established as a museum here in Washington, it should be noted that Freer lived in Detroit and had a beautiful home there, where he worked very closely with artists to fill it with objects that would kind of resonate with one another. And so if you're ever in Detroit, definitely take the time to visit the Freer House and see the building in which Freer initially had his art collection.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kerry. There were also some questions in the chat about Thomas Wilmer Dewing's wife, Maria,
Yes.
who was also an artist who you mentioned, and just where can we find out more about her?
Oh, she was fantastic. Yes, her name was Mariah Oakey. Actually, if you're in Washington, at SAM, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, does have a work of hers in their collection. She actually gave a painting to Freer, which unfortunately he did not keep. So it's a shame that we don't have any of her work in our collection. But there you can find her work at various museums around the country and locally here at SAM.
Well, thank you so much, Kerry, for joining us. Thank you to Aparna. Thank you to Kerry, and have a great weekend, everyone.